Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Good news, gang. iTunes have restored their ratings, so I'm back up to 93 reviews in the US and a lowly 24, I think, in the UK store. Not sure what's happening there. And I'm not sure about all the other countries. I know I'm listed to in 165 different countries, but iTunes splits all reviews into separate countries. So the only way of checking them all is by randomly visiting every single country's iTunes store. But if you would like to help me, please leave a quick rating. I'd really appreciate it, as it helps bring more people to our little community that we've got going on here. But today, I got a real cool AI story from Deb Ray in Los Angeles. And we're going to talk about how artificial intelligence has applications beyond classification or regression. And as a technologist, today's guest has a focus on developing generative applications of AI, the ability to create new media, design, and form a new hypotheses. As an advisor and investor, he's constantly on the lookout for startups that operate in markets that can be transformed by AI and blockchain, especially those that benefit from the second-order effects of these technologies. But today, he's going to be talking about Rivet AI and how that provides an AI platform for content creators to make production seamless, and also offers tools to augment storytelling. Now, Rivet AI was founded by a team of AI experts from companies like SpaceX, Pixar and Microsoft, who saw the limiting factors in content production and ideation. But their core technology is based on generative AI, the ability for machines to generate new media, writing and ideas. So this technology could put me out of business. So I'm intrigued on what he has to say today. And it's also worth highlighting that Rivet AI is backed by some of the most renowned VCs. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Los Angeles so we can speak with Deb Ray from Rivet AI. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Deb Ray, and I'm the founder and CEO of Rivet AI. Rivet AI is the first of its kind AI platform for content creators, where we enable content creators to streamline the workflow creating articles and video, and also give them tools to supercharge their creativity.
Sounds interesting. I mean, when I was researching you guys, I believe that Rivet AI provides a suite of AI tools for modern storytellers. But can you offer an overview of what kind of services you actually offer, and also what makes you guys different from other AI companies out there?
So I'll give you a little bit of a background of our company first. So our team, myself, started working in the field of AI focusing on language, natural language understanding, and natural language generation. So could you have an AI generate meaningful sentences, maybe even prose, maybe someday even write literature. So to do that, compared to other AI companies, now you might say like a company like Google or Microsoft, they have so much data, right? Why can't they do that a lot better? It's true for when it comes to images. So if you're asking me, okay, here's a random picture, what is in that picture? The more samples you have, the better you do. So that's where a company like Google, that's collecting billions of images, they have more training data for their AI, and they can help you identify. Like, that looks strange, but it is a cat, for example. So the more samples you have, the more variation you have, the better. But that's not really the case when it comes to language. So when it comes to language, context is very important, because, I could say, have the word bee, but if I say the word, look at that bee, that means one thing. Or I could say the drones were buzzing like bees. That's an analogy. Yeah. And in order to identify the bees used as an analogy in the latter case, you do need more depth of understanding. So the data that you're using to train on, that has to be deeper. the training sets that you have to use, they have to have kind of more depth of annotations in them. So that's why, even as a emerging startup, we set out to collect really good data sets for natural language understanding, and we had to focus on a vertical. And the vertical we went after is content creation. The reason for content creation, besides our own interest in storytelling, is that in content creation, the best content creators, arguably, are in Hollywood, because even in the span of even 10 minutes, right, for some of these short films, even in the span of 10 minutes, a whole story can be told, and it can move people. It can, you can come out of it shedding tears. It can actually move people. So that's why we focus on Hollywood having this ability, and content creators in Hollywood having the ability to tell stories. And the best part of that is there's so many scripts out there that are publicly available for us to train our AI tools on. So we collected samples of hundreds of thousands of scripts. Only a small fraction of them are ever turned into movies, but a lot of them are publicly available. Same with books and so on. So we could train our AI on that. It was a great training set for understanding storytelling. And also we could get annotations of, when it comes to doing script breakdown, the process of turning words in a script into its final form depicted in video. A lot of these annotations exist. So we trained our AI on that. And as a result of that, our natural language understanding and our natural language generation capabilities are a lot better than just collecting volumes of data on its own.
I love the Hollywood analogy there, but in real terms, can you tell me how you're using AI to actually impact the film and entertainment industry? Because it's fascinating what you're doing there.
So Rivet AI offers a suite of software tools. One of them is called the Agile Producer, and what it does is it optimizes the workflow for content creation. So you're starting from a script all the way to producing a final video or audio. There are multiple steps involved, and pre-production is a big part of it. So we focused on pre-production. Within pre-production, there's a script breakdown where you have to first go through a process of taking a script, the words, and seeing per scene, okay, what do I need? How do I plan this out? How do I, what are the elements that I need? Like, do I need props? Do I need actors? Do I need set dressings and so on? And then from that going into, okay, now these are the elements that I have. What is going to be my approximate budget for producing this? How do I, the process of filming? There's so many variables involved in scheduling, because, you have the actors, you have the locations where it's going to be shot, those would be affected by weather and lighting. They'll be affected by availability of, different equipment. So there's thousands of variables in play, millions of combinations, which are easier for AI tools to go through and figure out the optimal combination. Even in the script breakdown process, with training data, natural language understanding, we've automated the process. So you can feed it a script, and it will give you a breakdown of all the elements that you need, scene by scene, as well as approximated budgets for your production. So this was a process that used to take, 3 weeks for a feature film. You have a script for 200 pages or 200 scenes. It would take 3 to 4 weeks. Now it's a few clicks of a button. So what that enables is, it's shrinking down the pre-production step process. Also, something changes and you want to experiment with different versions, it's very easy to go make a few changes to the script or to the process and see what the effects would be, even during production. Sometimes the events happen that are beyond your control, so you can go and change that without disrupting the entire flow, and the whole filming shot stops for several days while you have to go and plan it again. But here with our tool, again, a few clicks of a button, you can do that all over again. So that's optimizing the workflow, the planning, as well as we're also introducing different, and we're taking a slow approach. We're introducing different ways that AI can augment the storytelling process itself. So the way we do that is we have tools for analyzing a story, which is given a script, and even shorter forms like articles. We can break down and look at story arcs, whether there's, changes in sentiment. And we have used our tools to analyze hundreds and thousands of scripts out there, and more and even more articles. And we have seen how story arcs form in all these scripts, and how story arcs form for successful writing versus non-successful writing. Even sentiments, what makes something engaging versus not. So we've analyzed all these elements. So we know, in a way, we can predict. Can't predict with 100% accuracy. But we can, in general, give guidelines or analyze a piece of content. And then we can give recommendations to certain authors, or we can show a graph showing the character interactions and the story process, which is actually beneficial to a lot of writers. So those are elements we're adding more and more. And we also have a SaaS-based offering through API. So everything we do is available through API, application programming interface. And that is something that we've been offering, and that's something that corporate communications departments have been interested in, because a lot of corporate communications have been moving away from really short 30-second video ads to actually producing sponsored content, or stories that even companies want to write about in their about their products or how people use them. So that's also available through our API process. So that's the second piece of our offering that we're kind of incrementally putting out there into the market.
So am I right in saying that your clients are from a completely wide range of backgrounds, such as film studios, advertisers and brands? It's quite diverse, isn't it, your clients?
It may seem that way, and yes, they are. But, when we started offering our workflow tools, and we started working with content creators in Hollywood, production companies and so on. So when we released our set of tools, there's a huge interest. And over 1,200 production companies signed up in the first 3 months alone, without even doing a lot of marketing. And the number one thing that we heard is about maybe 20% of the work that a production company does is around feature films, and 80% of it is more on the commercial side of it. The commercial side, in a lot of ways, pays the bills for a lot of folks. So when we looked into the commercial side, this commercial ads, but then a lot of companies and the work that our production companies were doing, they were working on sponsored content for brands and for corporates and for Fortune 500 companies. So when this set of tools and products came out of talking to and listening to our clients and our users, and a bulk of their work was actually focused on working with brands and with bigger companies and producing sponsored content. So that's how we were able to create this set of software tools and API tools that the brands can use.
So I'm curious, what kind of feedback have you received from your clients? Is it making them completely rethink the creative process?
So there's a couple of things that are happening. One is we're working with this really big giant conglomerate that has over 370,000 employees all over the world. And one of the things that they mentioned was, and it was very interesting, they have all these folks internally. Yet, when it comes to creating content, they're passing that work off to some external agency. And the agencies are not part of the company. They didn't really grasp what it meant, like what really needed to be depicted. So a lot of the work, a lot of these sponsored content that were created ended up looking very similar. It didn't showcase what the company is all about. So what they really wanted to do was tap into their internal resources. So, if they wanted to tell a story about medical devices, right? If you hand it over to an agency could do some research and give you a 1-minute piece or a 5-minute piece about something. Instead, they wanted to look internally and find find experts within their ranks and people who had real experience with these medical devices, talking, and their stories about talking to patients who have benefited from this, from doctors, from hospitals. So what we were able to do is, in an algorithmic fashion, ask the right set of questions. First, find a match to employees, and then ask them a set of questions to collect data about their experiences, stories, snippets of conversations that could be converted into stories. So we're able to collect a lot of these anecdotes and pieces from different folks, and then use that collection to construct different potential narratives out of that. So the companies can now look inside them and look at their huge number of employees working with real experience and use that instead of, just trying to start from scratch and create hypothetical experiences. Instead, these are authentic stories that they could create. So I think the demand is really there. A lot of brands, and a lot of companies have, big companies are a big tribe of people, right? They have their own collections of stories and experiences. So they see the ability to tap into that, to really engage their users, their consumers. So I think that's the kind of shift that's happening, where tools like this will enable companies to tell more authentic stories to connect with their consumers.
So when you're working with your clients and they begin to see that art of the possible after some time working with them, are you finding that it's also helping them expand their creativity? And ultimately, do you think technology will transform that creative process and actually create new genres even as well?
I think so. So I think technology will end up democratizing storytelling and creativity. Because right now, if you want to create a film, right, or if you have a story to tell, the process is you write your script perhaps using very set standards out there. Everyone's told that, hey, if you want to be a writer, the first thing you have to do is install this decade-old software called Final Draft. And then you put it in a certain format, which is 2 hours or whatever and a bit. And then you have to pitch it to different studios, and then the studios get to decide what they select and what they don't. So there are a lot of gatekeepers in this process. And we also, structurally what we think is, okay, only Hollywood knows how to create these stories. That's not quite true. In fact, there's a lot of know-how involved, like in the pre-production. Like writers don't even know after they've written their stories. They don't know how to take it to the next step. So tools like ours, with our tools, they don't need to go to a line producer or find another producer. They can go plug it into our system and see what, go with a plan, right? So technology is lowering that barrier to, and it's lowering the barrier by taking something that was opaque. The process of creating content that was very opaque. But these workflow tools don't make that opaque anymore. Anybody can go in and see what would happen if they plug in their, script. So what it would do is it would lower the barrier of entry for a lot of folks out there. So we'll see a lot more content. We'll see a lot more content creators emerge, and that's good timing with the market because so many different forms of content distribution have emerged. So earlier it just used to be movie theaters, but now you have, starting from Netflix, but now you have Instagram stories and so many other platforms where anybody could go out there and distribute their content. So now the distribution is very democratized. We're offering the set of tools to make creation more democratized.
And when I was also researching you guys, I quickly came across some exciting announcements that involved NQ, yourselves at RivetAI, and Green Card Pictures. Can you tell me more about this and how all those pieces fit together?
Yeah, so RivetAI was born out of NQ. It was incubated within NQ. And, NQ is Silicon Valley meeting Hollywood in some ways, technologists and venture capitalists who have an interest in film. So, NQ is the perfect ground for testing different technologies and growing different technologies because we could experiment with different content creation. So, NQ produced Sunspring, which was the world's first movie where the script was completely generated by AI. But since Sunspring, and Sunspring was kind of a viral hit, but since Sunspring, we had a change in philosophy. We could see that AI could write scripts on its own, but it really didn't have a lot of meaning. Meaning is harder to come by. I mean, you need human embodiment and human kind of understanding to give meaning to sentences and words. So our philosophy then was to have human AI collaboration. We saw that there would be a much more, the quality of work would be a lot better. And also there would be more impact if you had AI help human creators. So the next set of work that we did was using AI for dialogue generation and also for humor. So we collaborated with, so RivetAI was the technology part, and we collaborated with Green Card Pictures. Green Card Pictures is again a very forward-thinking production company based out of New York. And we created a short film called Progress Bar, as well as Mad Science Experiment 2000. Progress Bar was released very recently, where all the dialogues for the AI characters were generated with RivetAI's tool. And for Mad Science Experiment 2000, that was kind of a retake on Mystery Science Theater, where in Mystery Science Theater, you have the two robots that are kind of making comments on these B movies. We thought, the robot dialogues in Mystery Science Theater were written by people. We thought that was unfair. So we turned our AI to that, and it was trained on a lot of Reddit comments. So it started giving, making its own quips, and all the dialogues or all the the quips in Mad Science Experiment were generated by our AI. And from our audience reactions, they actually found it funny. So we have, the first example of AI created humor that actually has the audience appreciates and
AI created humour. I love the sound of that. But as we prepare to enter 2019, I mean, I've got to ask, what's next for Rivet AI, and what is the future of AI, and what impact do you think it will ultimately have on the entertainment industry long term?
So I think a big part of 2019 is a wider adoption of these AI technologies. And while we have pioneered a lot of these workflow tools and AI-generated dialogue and storytelling, it would be great to see other companies coming in the works, because this whole ecosystem has to grow as well. And it's exciting to see that there's a lot of companies working on AI-generated scoring and music. So I think what will happen is 2019, we'll see a lot more, a widespread adoption of more of these AI tools. And some of the things that you will see in 2019 is more films and sponsored content that have been using Rivet AI tools. So that will kind of give more confidence to people that these tools are actually very useful by reducing the amount of time it takes to produce content, reducing time and cost, as well as adding more flavor to creativity. Because if you see Progress Bar and if you see Mad Science Experiment 2000, those were just initial pieces that we did. In fact, our directors told us that working with the AI was actually pretty eye-opening, because the AI, some of the suggestions that were generated by the AI were, sufficiently random that it forced the directors to think. About a lot of the times where we have a certain habit of writing in a certain way, or we have sticking to a formula. When we think of AI, we think, okay, it's just following another formula. Actually, that's not really the case if you're using the right type of algorithms in deep learning. It can inject the right amount of randomness that forces the creators to think about it. It may force them to think, okay, well, this is something that was suggested by AI, so maybe it forces me to do something completely different. I won't follow the prescription. Or, it forces you down a path where it challenges the creator. So as a result, the variation that was generated was very interesting. So as more and more AI tools, good AI tools come about, we'll probably see more interesting content being created as well. So I think that's something to look forward to in 2019.
So if we do have a Hollywood movie mogul watching, do you think AI will ever be able to turn a god-awful script into an award-winning best screenplay, or equally a bad writer into a good writer? Do you think that could ever happen?
I mean, that definitely not 2019.
Yeah.
But the first part, which is a really bad script into a great one, is harder, because what really makes a good script is a story.
Yeah.
And if the story is bad, you can't really do too much with AI. Maybe let the AI write the whole thing itself. Yeah. But in terms of making writing more engaging, that is something that we have the ability to do right now. So the set of tools, the API tools that we offer to companies, part of that is taking the writing, because Hollywood writers are great storytellers and writers, but folks within companies and corporate departments are not. So it can take that writing and do certain things like change the readability, or different set of word choices, producing different story arcs, or adding more different types of sentiment. Those are things that we can do make that writing more engaging, more appealing, kind of rank higher, or even write about things that are more topical. We can surface that from, public data. We can observe social media and other, and news and other things that are writing that's popular and see what's topical. So those are things we could do. We can make writing perhaps more engaging, but the other part is going to take a long time.
Absolutely. Well, a huge thank you for spending time with me today and sharing your story. But before I do let you go, could I just ask that you remind the listeners of where they can find Rivet AI online, and also maybe even reach out and contact a member of your team if they've got any questions after listening to our conversation today?
Yeah, you can find us at rivetai.com, RivetAI.com. And if you are a production company or a producer, you can request access to our Agile producer tools. If you want to use, our API services, then you can write to us at, or if you have any questions, you can write to us at press, PRESS, at rivetai.com.
Fantastic. Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes that will accompany the podcast on the blog post on my website, just so anyone can find you nice and easily. But I love what you're doing. This is a project I'm going to continue to follow very, very closely. And if you do have any big announcements next year, I'd love to get you back on and hear how things are progressing. But more than anything, just a big thank you for coming on and sharing what you're doing with AI here at Rivet AI. I think it's fantastic. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you very much, Neil. It's been a pleasure.
Wow. AI is taking over Hollywood and empowering content creation. The use of next-generation AI tools to automate script highlighting, budgeting, scheduling, and so much more is a mouth-watering concept, isn't it? I mean, I don't work in Hollywood, but hey, one day. But seriously, script breakdown, where Rivet AI's natural language processing system is trained on specifically annotated data, automatically extracts the elements of a script into different categories, including characters, props, and audio-visual effects, all to name but a few, is incredibly exciting. It also has the ability to automatically generate storyboards and shot lists, all based on a script that you upload. So it's mind-blowing work and something that I'll be watching very closely. Maybe I should stop writing about tech and write my first screenplay and let AI tidy it up, a little bit like Mickey Donovan. Maybe that was the universe calling both me and you listening at home or your commute to work, telling you to check it out and see where it leads. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, so email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. Let me know your thoughts of today's conversation. As for my Christmas movie marathon, I made the mistake of letting my wife choose yesterday's, and we ended up watching something called The Family Stone, which, let's just say, wasn't really for me. So let's keep those suggestions coming in. Let me know what you've been up to. But we're out of time, I'm afraid, so a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.